the former top prosecutor for the Capitol riots, said on Sunday that the evidence in the attack could support sedition charges as federal investigators continue to examine former President Donald Trump's role in fomenting the insurrection. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. When you're a former occupant of the Oval Office, there are a few different directions you could go with your post-presidency. There's the Jimmy Carter route of charitable work, the Bush route of painting portraits of dogs like a weatherman filling in at the last minute for Bob Ross. Then there's the Obama route of making movies for Netflix, kite surfing with Richard Branson, dressing like an Italian fashion designer, and making up excuses to hang out with celebrities. Here's an idea for a podcast. Me and Bruce Springsteen just kind of hanging out. Mr. President, that sounds great. What would it be about? It's called Renegades. I came up with the name myself. It's great. What's it about? Sometimes little Steven will be there, but he has to share a mic with Bruce. And former President Donald Trump, as is his wont, chose and charted his own course. He's decided to spend his time creepily shuffling around his Palm Beach resort like the ghost of a retired dentist who drowned in a water hazard on the 18th hole. I was looking for my ball, and I forgot to come up for air. It was a Titleist. They're not cheap. Every weekend, a new photo emerges of Trump in the same getup, red hat, white polo, slacks that seem to be rising faster than the sea level. He spent all that time hanging out with Pillow Man when he really should have befriended the Untuck It guy. See how much more comfortable he looks? But no, Trump would rather wander around his own resort like a lost grandpa who's supposed to be watching the kids at the mall. We do have reports of a couple of kids playing keep away with a glow-in-the-dark dildo at Spencer Gifts. Does that sound like your grandkids? That does sound like them, yes. His business and finances are apparently in even worse shape. His net worth fell by $700 million during his presidency. The Manhattan DA's investigation of his business and tax returns is intensifying. And his Mar-a-Lago resort just partially closed so they could use it as a pop-up vaccination center. Wait, no, I read that wrong. It closed due to a COVID outbreak. My God, COVID follows this guy like a rain cloud following Daffy Duck. His rallies, the White House, now Mar-a-Lago, he's like a walking COVID test. If you're ever, in physical proximity to Donald Trump, you should just, quarantine for like 2 weeks just to be safe. It really does perfectly capture the state of the modern GOP, that their standard bearer, the guy they tried to overthrow democracy for, is now a financially broken ghost criminal. At this point, I have to assume he's also being investigated by Mulder and Scully. Mulder, look at this COVID cluster. What could be causing this? Have you ever heard of the coughing swamp ghost of Palm Beach? 5 or 6 years ago, we used to make jokes about his skin tone, and now he doesn't even have one. He's the color of spackle. Guess it makes sense he's a landlord because he looks like the layer of paint you'd find after peeling back the wallpaper in a Manhattan apartment. And on top of everything else, even his iconic plane, the private jet he used to fly everywhere during his first campaign, has now apparently fallen into such disrepair that it's not even flyable anymore.
The glory days of the gold-plated jet that Donald Trump once used as his calling card seem far away. It is now grounded and in disrepair.
It was the ultimate status symbol, Donald Trump's Boeing 757, a regular presence on the 2016 campaign. At his marquee events, there was his plane. Today, however, the massive jet sits abandoned at an upstate New York airport. One engine mostly missing, one wrapped, idle, in apparent disrepair. According to records, it hasn't been flown in months.
It's been sitting on the ramp for at least a year or two, and the left engine's been taken off, probably for service.
The crown jewel of Trump's fleet, now future unknown.
Wow, who broke this story? The Daily Metaphor? He's finally coming face to face with the consequences of his actions. Trump's like a character from an ancient Greek myth who doesn't let Hades finish describing the deal. You will be blessed with all the riches in the world, but in return, deal. Don't you want to hear the rest of the trade? I'm good, just get me on that Pegasus. It's just technically, I have to explain the terms of the deal. That's what my lawyer's for. Where is he, by the way? I told him to meet me at the River Styx. River Styx? I went to a Styx concert. Oh, Rudy. And not only are Trump's finances, his resort, his business, and his plane all in shambles, but he's now also reportedly under multiple investigations, including an investigation of the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. The federal prosecutor who previously led the investigation of the riot told 60 Minutes on Sunday there's likely enough evidence to meet sedition charges.
I personally believe the evidence is trending towards that and probably meets those elements.
Do you anticipate sedition charges against some of these suspects?
I believe the facts do support those charges. And I think that as we go forward, more facts will support that.
I have to say, I'm not sure why we have to have federal prosecutors on 60 Minutes telling us something we already know. Either charge them with sedition or don't. When did criminal investigators start doing press junkets like movie tours? Obviously, there were a lot of pranks on set. It was a fun investigation. I mean, I'm no lawyer, and I don't think sedition charges should be leveled lightly or often, but if a violent attack on the Capitol to impede the lawful counting of electoral votes isn't sedition, then what is? They stormed the House and Senate, injured 140 police officers. I'm not saying they were likely to succeed in overthrowing the U.S. government, but that doesn't mean it's not sedition. You're still guilty of attempted robbery, even if you get caught breaking into a museum in the middle of the night because you forgot to silence your ringtone. I'm in. I'm going to steal the diamond and then quietly rappel down the south wall. Oh, no, it's my mom. Oh, she loves K-Fed. Hey, remember when Sal earlier today said, should we switch it to my dad so I can say it's my Papa Sal? And we were all like, no, Sal. That will tarnish your reputation. We did him a huge solid. And now it's up to Sal. Am I going to leave that in or am I going to cut around it? Looks like someone else's integrity's on trial. There's already extensive evidence in the public record of detailed planning by militia members in advance of the January 6th riot and proof that they were coordinating their movements as it was happening. And not only are prosecutors apparently considering sedition charges for the rioters, they're also examining the role Trump himself played in fomenting those seditious acts.
Has the role of former President Trump been part of your investigation?
It's unequivocal that Trump was the magnet that brought the people to D.C. on the 6th. Now the question is he criminally culpable for everything that happened during the siege, during the breach? What I can tell you is this, based upon, again, what we see in the public record and what we see in public statements in court. We have plenty of people, we have soccer moms from Ohio that were arrested saying, well, I did this because my president said I had to take back our house. That moves the needle towards that direction. Maybe the president is culpable for those actions.
In short, you have investigators looking into the president's role.
We have people looking at everything, correct. Everything's being looked at.
Wow, he's being investigated for fomenting a violent sedition. He doesn't even have his jet to flee the country. If he gets indicted, he's going to have to book a commercial flight under a false name and dye his hair. So what do? Oh, insurance. That's a great business. I was the president of my condo association. That was close. So they were militia members who planned and coordinated their attacks. And they were there at Trump's explicit direction. Remember, he even advertised the date ahead of time and said, quote, be there, will be wild. He sowed a violent insurrection like an old guy hanging outside a liquor store inviting teenagers to a house party. Be there, it's gonna be wild. We're gonna hotbox my 86 Camaro. Bring pizza. The previous president fomented a violent insurrection to overthrow democracy, and the vast majority of his party either went along with him or stood by silently and let it happen. There needs to be consequences for that, especially since the GOP is still trying to rig our democracy in their favor through other means, whether it's their ferocious assault on voting rights or their attempts to challenge anyone who wouldn't go along with their attempt to steal the election. Trump left our democracy in the same state he left his plane.
Grounded and in disrepair.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated. We love you.